What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel. And I am back with yet another album review, and today I'm talking about the latest offering from Disembodiment, Spiral Crypts. Also came out on July 11th, this time on Everlasting Spew, and this is the band's debut album. This is their first album overall, and I got curious to check this one out considering it was on Everlasting Spew. And this is a Sherbrooke, Quebec, Canada-based death metal band. And, well, you guys know me and how much I love death metal, so I was curious to give this one a listen, especially since this is a new band. And, well, kicking things off on this album with this track, Morbid Infestation, which is the longest track of the album at nearly 6 minutes, but it's closer to the 5.5-minute mark. After kind of a long, drawn-out intro, it does go right into the real meat and potatoes of this album. The guitar tone on this album, it is guttural, raw, nasty, putrid sounding. I actually kind of like the guitar tone on here. It just sounds like early 90s cavernous death metal, like kind of that like Incantation, Rodivore, that kind of sound, like that very cavernous sounding death metal tone. That's pretty much what this guitar tone is all about. And it goes right into grooves and blast beats, and it even gets punky. Like whenever it gets to its fastest moments that aren't blast beats, they're more so like punk beats rather than like, say, a thrash beat or a hyper fast beat. It's more or less a punky beat that is really kind of one of the big ingredients of this album. But of course, nasty apocalyptic tremolo riffs and chugs, and that's pretty much what this album goes for the most part. It's just going for like blunt force trauma, chugs, and groove, mixing in with those like apocalyptic tremolo riffs, almost like as if you took Incantation and a band like Internal Bleeding, for example, and combined the two together. I wouldn't quite call this slam death metal, but there are definite slam moments that show up on here, especially in the breakdowns and even some of the riffs. Like, for example, I would say as far as like where it gets kind of the slammiest would be in tracks like Putrefaction. There's a breakdown towards the end of the song that does get close to slam, but it's not really. It's more kind of like a brutal death metal breakdown, if anything else. But then towards the end of the track, Infected to Rot, you get like this bass slam where the bass line is playing like a slam riff all on its own, and even the opening riff is very slammy, and then it builds right into tremolos and blast beats. Now, as far as like any moments that stood out, I would say the second track, Stygian Overture, the tremolo riffs there definitely remind me a lot of Incantation. Like, I would say particularly the like Mortal Throne of Nazarene and Diabolical Conquest era of Incantation. It just has this like sinister, evil tone to it, even though it's probably a lot more raw than those two tones were. But there's even on this track, as well as the title track, some little spots of doom. Like, there are just like these doomy guitar parts that show up in Stygian Overture to kind of break up the groove or the punkiness or the blast beats. And then the breakdown on the title track felt very much like a death doom breakdown, not so much a slam or a brutal death breakdown. It felt more like a death doom breakdown. Then we get into later on a track like Unknown Origins, which was the shortest track of the album at under 2 minutes. Mostly just went right for the jugular with nasty tremolos and blasts, but you do get a pretty nasty near slam breakdown towards the end. And then the closer, Sentient Inorganic Mess, just cool bass line to start it off. Like, I really like the moment where the bass line shows up to kind of showcase to everyone listening that, hey, bass is in the mix, which you can hear the bass in the mix. Like, I will say the mix is fairly solid. I'll touch more about the mix when I get to the issues that I had. But then it goes back into the chug, the groove, tremolo, blast. Now, as far as, like, leads go, there was only a few that show up on here, but they're mostly, like, big dive bombs. Like, no melody or anything like that. It was just big dive bombs. As far as, like, individual moments on the other tracks I didn't mention, or parts I didn't mention, Stygian Overture, you do get a brief melodic break in the guitars. And it's not a pretty melody, it's a nasty melody. And then a song like Larval mostly goes for like a punky, hardcore inspired style, even though you also do have gallops. There was even gallops as well on Stygian Overture that show up. So it's like they're trying to add a few different things to kind of break up the thing that I had probably the biggest issue about with this album. It felt very formulaic. Like, let's just alternate between these like chugging grooves and tremolo and blast beats. It just felt like they didn't really add much else to it other than maybe a couple of punky beats here and there, but it just didn't quite feel like it was enough to make this album stand out in any way in terms of like, oh, this is something really unique. No, it kind of just felt like a mishmash, like I said, of like internal bleeding and incantation, like a kind of a combination of both of those bands. I'm not saying it's a bad formula, I just wish there could have been a little more variety in the songwriting department. And then the other issue that I have, the other issues, first, I do wish, like, there would be times when the blast beats come in, the guitars get a little bit buried in the mix. And then, of course, the intro and outro of this album just felt needless. Even though this album's only 30 plus minutes, I think this could have been whittled down to about a 29-minute album if you'd taken out that drawn-out intro on Morbid Infestation and the ending of Sentient Inorganic Mess. So yeah, there are quite a lot of drawbacks on this album, but one thing that isn't a drawback is the potential that this band definitely has. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5. It's a pretty decent, solid album for sure. Perhaps on the next album, they will explore a little bit more and add more seasonings to this, like, meat and potatoes death metal they're going for, and maybe incorporate a little more melody, maybe even a little more speedy moments. We'll just have to wait and see, but if you're curious to check this out, give it a listen and form your own opinion. But of course, those are just my opinions, but what did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching, keep your horns high, and your dreams wet.